This episode of the Inferno is presented by Pearl River Resort. Pearl River Resort is the perfect place to spend a game day weekend. With gaming, golf, dining, entertainment, and more, there's no better place to stay and play. Welcome back to another exciting The Inferno. Today's episode rundown brought to you by Legacy Credit Union. Legacy Credit Union, the official credit union of UAB. Mark Ingram to my right, the UAB athletic director. We have a special guest. We'll be talking about spiking and killing today. I like that, man. Also, this week in UAB athletics, how do you solve a four-way tie?
A sack race.
A sack race?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go with that. And
That's
finally, is it time for ET to finally phone home?
Well,
I'm going to ask you and Coach a question I can promise you've never gotten before.
Okay.
It's coming up next on The Inferno.
Trent Dilfer here, head football coach of the UAB Blazers. I want to tell you about my friends at Legacy Credit Union. Legacy began as University Credit Union in 1955 and remains committed to UAB faculty, students, alumni, and fans. Not only do they support the Birmingham community, but they are also proud sponsors of UAB and UAB athletics. Visit LegacyCreditUnion.com and find out why you should become a member today.
Our podcast we do every single week right here. I'm Tony Kurre. I'm Mark Ingram, the UAB athletic director. You and I have been doing a show together for like 30 or 40 years or something like that. I mean,
been a while.
We've been on longer than Carson. We've been doing it, so we know each other very, very well. Special guest, Betsy Freeberg, the volleyball head coach. This is the first time, of course, you made the tournament in the American Conference, so congratulations. And I know you had a four-way tie for the 8th seed. We'll be talking to her about that in just a few minutes. That's is that one of those? Did they come down to a coin toss?
No, that's what I said. Is there were several tie-break criteria, and we sent Coach Freeberg to Dallas, and she and the other three coaches had a sack race, and she won it. And so she's an athlete. That's why we hired her, and that's how we won. Now, we had the tie break. She can explain it, but we had the head-to-head competition against the other people that we were tied with.
Okay, awesome. And I'm so happy to have her on. You know why? Because my daughter started playing volleyball for the first time this year.
Fastest growing women's sport in America.
Yeah, so I'm 6'4", 6'7" with heels. My ex is 5'10".
Tall people.
So I told her, I said, you're going to be tall and beautiful just like your father and your mother. But you're going to be good looking. And I said, you need to start playing some volleyball. And she's by far the tallest one on the team, on the 12-year-old. But unfortunately, at the YMCA, they don't really practice rules. We've been playing against boys' teams, and we're still spanking them. So
you just beat them.
She may be playing for the UAB Blazers before too long. All right, this week in UAB athletics, big football game coming up this weekend. Rice, of course, it'll be senior night, the last home game, Protective, and that's always a special evening.
1 o'clock Saturday against Rice. So now here is the interesting conversation around the way the transfer portal is working. Is their starting quarterback is E.J. Warner, son of Kurt Warner, who played in the NFL for a million years. E.J. Warner was the starting quarterback at Temple last year, so he has been to our stadium. This will be his second trip to our stadium in 2 years with two different teams. And he's a really good player, very accurate passer. They are incredibly good on defense, especially against the pass. They are 4th ranked in the country in pass defense, believe it or not. The Rice Owls are incredibly good on defense against the pass. So it'll be an interesting game plan for us. We run the ball well at the right time. We've got some very capable backs, I'm not to give away the game plan, and I haven't spoken to Coach about it, but I would have to assume, given their ability to defend the pass, that we may be on the ground a little bit more than you've seen. But seniors always want to play hard, and if you can get the rest of your team to play like it's their last game, the way the seniors play like it's their last game, then you've got something. So
when you're in high school, and I only played one play. I was in for tight end for the Lakota Thunderbirds, one play,
but a really good play
on a third 13, and we got 14 yards. We did, and then the other tight end on our team came up to me and said, "If you take another snap, I'll kill you." And so I went back and started playing trumpet back in the marching band. I was much better at that. But, when these kids have been under the Friday Night Lights for 4 years, and they're blessed enough to maybe have played all the way from the Pop Warner days, and they get all the way through high school, and then all of a sudden you have, I don't know what the percentage of high school kids that actually get a scholarship to a program like UAB. Then you get that opportunity, and next thing you know, you're playing college ball.
Yeah.
And then less than 1% of those kids are going to be playing some type of organized football, unless it's some intramural league or something like that. Of course, you could be doing something with the Stallions or someone else. But
Yeah.
if you want to go play with the big boys in the National Football League, it's less than 1%. So when you're talking about these seniors,
like
this may be the
1%.
last time these kids take a snap.
Yeah, it's like 1% of 1%.
Yeah.
It's smaller than you know. I mean, look, I've been in college athletics my whole life. My children all participate in sports. They've all wanted to go play somewhere in college if they could. It's just really hard, and you're better off to invest your money in tutors and things like that. But we invest in things like pitching coaches and quarterback coaches and kicking coaches and swing coaches and all these different things. And it's a really hard thing to do. And I remind our student athletes that they're superhuman. They don't know that they are because they hang out with each other, and they don't think that it's weird that they can jump as high as they can jump or run as fast or be as tall and big and do a thing that they can do or push as much weight because everybody else is doing it. It's very normalized, but they're not normal. And then they also are, most of them, great students. So they're really, special people, the young men and women on all of our teams, and that the opportunities are thin. And so, when you get the opportunity to play, you got to take full advantage of it. But you kind of can get caught up in this, particularly when you're a freshman. If you're talking football, you're guaranteed 12 games a year. And if you do well enough, you get a bowl game, so you get a 13th. If you do really well, you get the championship. But you're guaranteed 12 if you stay healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, when you're a freshman, you go, that's 48, man, 48 games. 48 games goes by in a flash, and you don't think it until next thing you know, you're finishing up your junior year and you go, man, I've only got one more of these. Because, when you're, it's hot during fall camp and practice is long, it's tiring, and weight workouts are hard, it's strenuous, it's demanding, and when you go to practice, you're going to a practice where people spend their time trying to knock you down. And so it's not a ton of fun. It can be, but it's also not a lot of fun. So staying focused and wanting to play and having the desire, you got to love it, man. Like, you can't just be a guy that, well, because I'm big and I'm strong, I guess I'll play football. No, I mean, you got to want it to be good. Yeah. Being on the team is one thing, which is hard to do, but then getting on the field is hard.
No, it's one of my favorite games to go to every single year, just because I know what it takes. And
I hate senior day. I hate senior day.
I know you do, but I know you'll be down the field with these kids, and just to know that this is their last opportunity, and you just pray they get an opportunity. Yeah, you pray they get a chance to get into the game and actually get a few snaps. Some of them obviously will. Some of them have been looking for that first snap for quite some time. So,
but Mark, a lot of them, I've known them since they were recruited. Yeah. Right. So you meet their families, you kind of get to know them over a period of time. In the old days, that might be 4 or 5 years. It's not as much anymore, but there is a real pride in seeing, like, remember how nervous you were when you were on your visit? Remember we talked about that thing and you were worried about whatever, and man, you're gonna walk across the stage next week. Can you believe you're gonna do that? Like, that's a great conversation to have, but then you see some great people leave you, so that's what's tough about senior day.
I'm not a doom or gloom guy at all. I am for my Cincinnati Bengals now, because when we record the show on Monday,
tough one.
I feel it for Joe Burrow. I mean, he's the best quarterback in the National Football League, and he's sitting there. They lost 7 games, but when it comes to basketball season, you're playing 32, 33, 34 games sometimes. And then, of course, depending on how far you go in the tournament and NIT or anything else, it could be 35 or 36. And so when you lose early ball games, I don't really look at the loss, because it's not really, it's not like it used to be where you have to take top tier games. And obviously when you're playing like Big Ten teams or teams that are of course going to be big tier wins, you want to win those games because you obviously want the NCAA to look at those at the end of the season when they're building out the bracket. I get that. When you're coming from a league like the American with UAB, I realized Vermont was very, very good. A strong team last night, double-digit wins almost every single year. And then you got this team called High Point, and I don't think a lot of people realize High Point's a really good
to win their league.
Yeah, they're a really good basketball team, and so coming up a little short, they did come back. They were down big time in the second half of that basketball game. But I like to look at tape, and I like to look at each and every game and see how we're progressing. Right. And then as a team, I look for progression, but then I like to look at individuals and how they're progressing. Yeah. And I know, much like The last 2 years, UAB's kind of started off the same way. They always start off a little slow, and then they seem to find themselves halfway through the season. Am I right here?
Yeah, Andy has set the schedule. He tries to find teams that, so let's take those two. High Point in Vermont. He tries to find teams who he believes will win their league or compete to win their league so that, it helps us later on when you're looking at it for the NCAA tournament. You're right. In basketball, where you have so many games, losses don't impact you as much. They impact you.
Sure.
But they don't impact you as much as, say, in football, where you lose one and it's like, oh, man. If you're a playoff contender team, you're trying to be undefeated because you think it's really your only assurance of being in it. Now, with the expanded playoff, who knows? But, in basketball, he's tried to find teams that he thinks will win their league or compete to win the league, and you got to show up. And you're right. We did this the last couple of years. We got a little bit better as we went along and then really peaked kind of midway through the conference schedule and really start playing, the last 8 or so games, 8-10 games in the conference really, really well leading into conference play or the tournament. So hopefully that's where it is. Just got to make some shots fall, man. Those guys work really hard. Andy has talked about it in his post-game press conference. I don't know how many of the people that will watch this have seen that, but specifically talking about Butta Johnson a couple of games ago, he made a couple shots, and Andy said, a lot of times you can tell guys that don't make shots – they're out of shape or they're not working hard, these kind of things. He said that's just not the case with Butta. He goes, the kid's in great shape. He's working his tail off. He's in the gym trying to get shots up all the time. He just hadn't made it fall. And you got to see it go through the rim a few times to get that confidence back. But and it'll get there.
The other thing I love about basketball is I love football. But football is an all-day kind of thing.
Yeah.
You tailgate, and you're there for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours, right? Yeah. Basketball, man, you could be sitting there eating dinner, and you look up at the clock and go, oh, it's 6:30. I can shoot down to Bartow Arena tonight and go check out Auburn Montgomery. I mean, we can get it done, which we'll be doing later on tonight, so we're looking forward to that. This segment, of course, brought to you by Legacy Credit Union. Legacy Credit Union, the official credit union of UAB. You are bigger than just basketball and football, my friend.
In fact.
My daughter just took up this sport. We'll tell you what it is next with their head coach from UAB up next right here on the Inferno.
The if in life, it's a world of possibilities. If you go for a night out with friends, if you can keep an eye on your money along the way, if you know you have overdraft protection with no fee transfers from savings, when you get a low balance alert, it's easier to say yes to fun. If that sounds good, try Regions Life Banking.
Stay ready for the if in life. Regions Bank embrace the if in life.
Today's Coach's Corner is brought to you by Viva Health and Pepsi. This is the Inferno. We normally have either Andy Kennedy, of course, the basketball coach, or Trent Dilfer, the UAB football coach. We are graced and blessed, of course, to have a very special guest, Betsy Freeberg, the head coach of the volleyball program, join us right here on the Inferno. What's up, Betsy? Come on, let's get it.
Just made our conference tournament for the first time in history of the Americans, so we're
there
in.
You go.
Which is 2 years, but let's not count it.
That's right.
First time in school history, second time. But anyway, great job.
You'll be going to Wichita on Friday against South Florida, number 1 seed. Yeah, 1 against 8 seed, correct?
That's right. 1 versus 8. We just played them on Sunday.
There
we
you
know
go.
what they do. We know what they're good at.
We know what they do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're excited.
So what are they good at?
Yeah. They served the ball really, really well on Sunday. And so we're excited to be on a neutral site that's in an arena that's much more like what we're similar playing in versus they play in a gym that sits about 1,000 and they had it packed there. And they serve the ball really well. They have 2 really good outside hitters as well that we're going to have to figure out how to slow down a little bit. We did a great job in set 1 of both of the managing both of those things, and then we got to figure out how to put it together a little longer.
I'm so glad you're here because my daughter, I just mentioned before, Lila Jane is 12. She just started playing volleyball because I'm 6'4". Her mom was like 5'10", and so she's gonna be a tall sprout. And I'm like, you need to start learning how to play volleyball, and she's loving it. She absolutely loves it. So I've got a lot of questions to ask you because I love watching women's volleyball. It was actually on ESPN. ESPN does their college game day, and then at 12 o'clock they get off and they were playing some collegiate volleyball. So I actually watched a little of that before I watched college football on Saturday. First of all, 4-way tie. How do we get one of sack race? How do we do?
I'll take all the athletic credit with the sack race.
How do we figure out who wins that one, a 4-way tie?
It was really close. I was just telling Mark, we weren't actually in the 8th spot until the last serve with the Temple Charlotte match, and Temple won that match. That put us into the 4-way tie with Temple adding into that, and we won 3 games in that matchup. Tulane and Memphis had both won 2, and Temple had won 1. And so we didn't have to go to sets or anything. We won the most matches amongst that group, and we're in.
That is fantastic. Boom. You mentioned that South Florida is really good at serving. Just based off what I've seen from 12-year-olds, you get a really good 12-year-old server.
Yeah,
it's over.
It's amazing.
And then they're serving 25 straight points.
Yep.
And it's I'm sorry, it sucks because they're really good.
Action.
There's no action. When they're really good, they know they can hit the same spot over and over. And I feel for the girl because in this particular case, it was my daughter who got smoked like 6 times in a row, and I said, "Honey, they're coming at you next. Be ready." And she's sitting there with her arms down by her side. I said, "Go." And then, of course, she knocked it over, and we were all good to go. And then someone else could take the brunt of those hits. How definitive it is? I know in tennis, for example, you want to break sets, right? You want to break sets, but usually you have the advantage when you're serving. How much of an advantage is a serve in volleyball?
It actually isn't. It's kind of flipped from that. When you receive at the high levels, about 63% of the time you're going to be able to side out. And so when you receive the serve, so oftentimes teams will choose to receive actually versus choose to serve. Kind of depends on your strengths. South Florida, I think they would flip that because serving is one of their strengths.
So what percentage of their serves would be good?
Oh, I don't know that. But the thing that's so interesting with serving, too, is so many people that aren't as familiar with volleyball will say, it's like shooting a free throw. I hate it when people miss serves. And we're like, well, actually, there is a risk-reward aspect to it. So South Florida, they actually had 15 missed serves yesterday in our 3-set match. But they served us off the court. When the ball was in bounds, it was a tough situation.
And were those because they were going long?
Long in the net, all sorts of variety. And so because there's just different serving strategies and whatnot. And so missing serves is not, I know to most people that are starting out being fans, they hate missed serves.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes it's actually a great tool and a great weapon to try and get the other team out of system and doing things that they don't want to do. Because otherwise it's a really easy serve, that side out percentage that I was talking about, the 63%. That raises incrementally, and siding out is the name of the game in volleyball.
So we've seen pros do free throws between the legs when they're really lousy free throws. I know Shaquille O'Neal tried it a couple times, and I can see the trajectory of the ball makes it easier to go in. I was telling my daughter, you cannot hit it over your head and get it over. Then she just can't do it at this point. So I know you will eventually. It'll come to you. But in the meantime, I know you can going underhanded. What's the biggest difference between the underhand serve and the overhand serve? Certainly at your level, it's got to be different.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As you're first learning the game, I would say those side-out percentages, as the levels get higher, you get into the Olympics, the side-out percentages are in like the 80s or whatnot.
Yeah.
At the little kids level, though, I think the server does have the advantage versus if you're getting the ball in the net and over. That's what we're talking about at camps with our elementary and middle schoolers. Hey, we're going to learn how to overhand serve, but when you get to a game, go to something that you can get in the court because ultimately the ball landing on your side is what scores a point for the other team. And so you got to get the ball on the other side of the court to be able to give yourself a chance.
I was watching, I think it was the 3rd installment of Meet the Fockers, the one where Stiller's in the swimming pool and they're playing volleyball, and of course, they're giving him a hard time. And he takes the ball, he slams it, hits the gal in the face. Do you have some killers? Do you have some people that just like to aim for people as opposed to open court? They just want to stuff it in their face?
Well, we teach them to swing deep, and so sometimes people's faces get in the way.
What does swing deep mean?
We want to attack the perimeter of the court because then it takes away the blockers' abilities to maybe get stuff blocks or whatnot. When you're going for the ball straight down in the middle of the court, if there's a blocker in your face, that ball's going to come straight down on your side. And so it's going to be a ba-boom, ba-boom moment in a block. And so swinging deep kind of mitigates that a little bit. But we have some arms and some cannons on the team. Jordan Crook is really our leading one of those.
Yeah, stay out of the way.
And I always wonder, how in the world do you make a kill, or I'd be calling spike here, I guess, but not get your hand into the net?
Yeah, you just got to...
A lot of practice.
Yeah, a lot of practice. Good approaches,
Really?
Give yourself room. We actually typically attack the ball about 3-4 feet off the net when you're in the front row. And so that gives you enough room to take a full arm swing.
I am kind of amazed when I'm watching the game how few times people are in the net on either side. And I understand they're good players and they've practiced not doing it, but it just seems like your body control, your body momentum, just playing and being athletic, you would fall, stumble, lose your balance, and they really don't, not much.
Yeah, it actually happens much more often when you're blocking because you're actually trying to penetrate the net and to get on the other side of the net with blocking. And so that's when most of the net violations occur versus when attacking. Gotcha. Attacking, it might be like an overpass in a really tight situation and someone gets excited. But really, it's a lot of body control and a lot of practice.
Yeah. Betsy Freeberg, she's the head coach of the UAB Blazers. They got the 8 seed. They're taking on South Florida, Wichita, Kansas going on this Friday, the 8th, during 1 seed matchup. What is the biggest difference then outside the fact that you're playing on sand as opposed to a court, sand ball as opposed to court ball, and what do you find most players enjoy? I guess a sand you can jump and dive a little bit more because it doesn't hurt as much, but what's the biggest difference there?
There's so many differences, and one of my beach coaches, who's also a coaching friend of mine, she said, beach and indoor are like twins. People think they're the same thing until they start getting to know them. And then you're like, oh, these people are very different. And there are some similarities. You're trying to bump that spike.
Yeah. There's a net involved.
Yeah, there's a net. But other than 2 people versus 6 people, indoor game is so much more dynamic because of the hard surface to come off of.
Yeah.
And so you are jumping really high. You're moving really fast. And so there's a lot more power in the indoor game. Versus the beach game, you're trying to just, hey, how can I figure out how these shots? There's a lot more court available because there is only maybe one defender if someone's blocking. And so how are you trying to put the ball down? Truthfully, I don't know a lot about the beach game because my position I played is one that favors the indoor almost exclusively.
Gotcha.
And so,
talk about recruiting, Betsy. I think what's interesting is given the number of young people playing volleyball, I guess ultimately that produces more potential players talent-wise, but because there's so many playing, does that make it harder to recruit? Is it becoming more challenging to recruit?
It's certainly interesting because these tournaments just continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And
is that where you see most of your kids? You go to tournaments?
Yes, so we're at tournaments recruiting there's like the big tournament in the summer, national championship. It's 120 courts.
Wow.
2 different waves or 3 different waves. And so I can't even think thousands of volleyball players trying to figure it out. And so we have different people on our staff that are really good at different things. Ashley Beach, our assistant coach, is so good at finding the diamonds in the rough. We just send her to like the lower level divisions and we're like, just walk around and see if someone's tall, see if someone jumps high, see if someone's just from like kind of an under recruited market that we don't miss out on. Ryan is more he's figuring out, okay, in the upper levels, what does that look like? And then I just get to come in and kind of be the sniper and be like, yes, I like this. No, I don't like this. Mm-hmm. How does this work? And so it's a lot like that. The biggest thing is, though, these tournaments are getting so big. Yeah. How can you manage that? How can you just sort through it? Yeah, thankfully we have this great software that can help us navigate that quite a bit.
She's Betsy Freeberg. She's the head coach of the UAB volleyball. And, of course, they're getting ready to take on South Florida this Friday. Depending on when you're hearing the show, it may have already happened. And hopefully we already get a winner in our back pocket from Wichita, Kansas. I noticed certainly during the Olympics, a lot more people take part in watching volleyball. It seems like people want to go out and play volleyball in their driveway during the Olympic season. A lot of that has to do with the star power that comes along with that, and we've certainly seen that from the women's side. Mm-hmm. I've got a good friend of mine. Fun. Yeah, I got a good friend of mine who actually is I got to be careful here. He's a therapist, if you will, for a couple of very well-known USC volleyball players, and he travels out there and he's always sending me videos of stuff. It's just amazing. Who are some of the biggest people in your sport right now that make an impact at your level, at the college level, that perhaps we would know and who we could follow, and so we could come see?
Yeah, well, I'm going to start in our gym. Jordan Crook has had a fantastic season. She's been American Offensive Player of the Week twice. Mm-hmm. We're anticipating some sort of award, postseason award. Hopefully, her numbers are certainly deserving of that. She's number 2 in the conference in kills per set and points per set. And so I think that's right, something like that. But
close enough.
She is a really dynamic athlete, and she's from Ohatchee, Alabama. And,
there you go.
And so we love that. We love recruiting our backyard and getting the best kids in Alabama to be excited about playing in Alabama and that sort of thing. But really, you talked about it earlier, the accessibility of seeing volleyball on ESPN. It's almost always on, and we're playing like almost every night of the week.
It's weird because I don't ever look and go, volleyball. But whenever I watch it, it's kind of like Forrest Gump. Whenever that movie comes on, I can't stop watching it.
Yeah,
it's like I watch the entire thing.
Person,
it's great. Yeah, it really is.
But, as they get older, you're talking about your 12-year-old daughter, but, you watch our team play, they're taller. It's like anything. You don't realize how tall they are because they're all together. So they all look the same height. And you get down there, and you're like, wow, you guys are really tall, athletic people, and
what's your average
the court
height?
starts to shrink. The point is, the court starts to shrink because of their size, and they're able to cover more ground. It looks like they're playing on a ping pong table. They're bang, 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 and it's really fast, and it's intense.
Who's your tallest player?
We've got a couple players that are about 6'2", and so about my height. Right. Well, y'all can't see how tall I am. I'm about 6'1".
I'm not going to stand next to Betsy and let you see. But
hey, thank you for coming in. Can you stick around?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is our coach's corner. I can do our hot topic now because the Pentagon just released something yesterday that I want to talk to you guys about.
Okay, the Pentagon.
You want to talk a little politics?
Sort of.
We'll get into it next year on the Inferno.
Are you getting sacked by monthly fees on your checking account? Trent Dilfer here, head coach of the UAB Blazers. Legacy Credit Union's everyday checking account can get you back in the game. No minimum balance, no monthly fees, and get paid up to 2 days early. Check out LegacyCreditUnion.com for more information and apply today. Legacy, the official credit union of UAB.
Back in the Inferno, Betsy Freeberg, the volleyball coach for UAB Blazers, getting ready to head to Wichita, Kansas, getting ready to take on that 1 seed South Florida team they know very, very well. So the Pentagon yesterday just released their annual UAP UFO report. You see, they started this thing about 3 years ago, remember? And they had all these people up there, and they were talking about Area 51, and there were several people up there that said they actually had touched ETs and this, that, and the other, stuff like that. So now they have to come out with this annual report because there's actually money behind it. So they do that every single year. And every year we get a little closer to finding out how much the government's hiding from us, how real the possibility is that there are ETs, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
The question is, and Donald Trump, and I think it's funny because Donald Trump is obviously putting together this cabinet. It's a who's who of cabinet people. I think it's the first time I've actually known some people that are actually in a cabinet, just because they're Fox reporters and they're people that normally I would not know, which I think is funny. But the person he's looking at to fill this situation that would be extending this area of UFOs through the Pentagon is saying that if he gets elected, he's going to open up everything. Now, this is not the first time we've heard this. And I'm an Ancient Alien guy. I like to watch that show on Friday nights.
Okay.
The question is, do you think we are ready to know the truth? And I just wanted to get, because you obviously two very small. Do you you don't think we're ready for the truth? So if they do exist or they have existed, you don't think we're ready for it?
I don't think so. Betsy, what do you think?
I think our team is going to be really shook by this because we actually, when we were at FAU last week, we went into the beach and gave them 30 minutes to hang out. And we were like, okay, which is scarier, the ocean or outer space? And they were like, the ocean for sure. And I was like, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about outer space. So.
It's way out there.
Well,
they're like, we're never going to outer space. We're going to the ocean.
We've only explored 5% of our oceans.
5%.
We know more about Mars than we know about our own oceans. Are you aware of that?
5%? Mm-hmm. You making that up?
No, I'm not.
I wouldn't know any different.
And ancient aliens, these ancient astronauts would tell you that we shouldn't be looking up. We should be looking down. There's more life below us than there is on top of us.
Okay.
Which I think is interesting. Let me ask you this. Do you know anybody in your life, if someone said there are ETs that are living among us, would you go, oh, I know one?
I could pick a few. I could pick a few.
I could too. Could you?
Probably.
Coach? Yeah.
Come on. She's just being nice.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I think there's 2 or 3 different people, Anybody else in the room? Y'all?
Nobody in the room, but
no. I mean, it's okay to call out
Molly
your friends.
engineer says yes.
Yeah, because I know there's 3 people that I've actually thought to myself, I don't think there's ETs living among us until I met them, and I was like, you know what? I'm starting to believe it's a possibility. Yeah. They're a little off.
Very off. Few. I got a few.
Okay. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
They like
I think
Twitter.
It's interesting. I would love, it's something we've been talking about. The other thing is I think that if, in fact, we found out.
They all like Twitter.
If we found
Elon
out.
went and got them.
Yeah, they all like Twitter.
Here's the thing, though. If they were ETs living among us, I don't believe that they know they're ETs.
That's a plot twist.
So they said, you know,
are you writing a book?
In other words,
Is
you
this
could
a
be
fictional...
one and you wouldn't know it because I think they're placed here and they don't know it because I mean, if they knew it, then it would blow the whole cover, right?
Science fiction.
So I don't think that's
sports.
a possibility. The other thing is, I'm thinking all the Bigfoot people would probably start coming out. Next, you know, because that's the next monster of the big.
That's not an ET. That's a
real.
Yeah, he's just hanging out in the woods, man. He's not from another planet.
Well, a lot of people have put Bigfoot in the same breath with ET because they say when you see one, you usually see the other.
Okay. Maybe.
I need to stop watching television Friday nights.
Crop circles.
Volleyball. More volleyball.
Yeah, go.
More volleyball.
More volleyball, less UFOs. Coach, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. The Inferno, we do it every single week. Andy Kennedy, of course, is going to be a constant guest on the show, as well as Trent Dilfer, the head football coach right here of your UAB Blazers. Go to UABsports.com, UABsports.com for tickets, information, stories on every athletic thing that's going on at UAB. You can also check out TKR, Tony Kurre Radio, which is the TKR app. Download that. You can hear this podcast as well as 18, 19 other podcasts and everything. It's UAB, you know where my heart is. It happens every single week right here on The Inferno. This episode of The Inferno is presented by Pearl River Resort. Call it an early weekend and head over to Pearl River Resort, where it's always no work and all play at Silverstar, Golden Moon, and Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. And be sure to catch the big game excitement at Timeout Lounge.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.